The magnet is cracking the code's purpose-designed mount for filming your technique with your phone. It's finally here in limited quantities in our store, but you probably shouldn't buy one. Well, at least not until you know if it's going to help. And if I sound a little cautious, it's because we've received a huge number of inquiries about the magnet, and I suspect that a number of these, perhaps a significant number, are from players who are under the impression that the magnet is the missing link that's going to transform their playing. And this is the part that worries me a little. The magnet is an incredibly powerful tool for understanding picking technique, but like any tool, it was designed for a specific purpose. And depending upon the challenges you're experiencing, filming yourself in slow motion may not be all that helpful in figuring out what to do next. And we don't want you to waste your valuable energy, time, and money analyzing stuff that may not actually need to be analyzed. So, will a magnet improve your playing? Let's find out. We designed the magnet to specifically position the phone to achieve what we call a down the strings angle, which looks like this. In this view, the camera lens is placed low, almost at the level of the strings, and this lets you view the motion of the pick in the center of the video frame. But why would you want this? Well, it's because you want to see an aspect of your picking technique that wasn't really well known before cracking the code: escape motion. That's when the pick moves along a diagonal like this, or along the opposite diagonal like this, or in a semicircle. And the reason for this is so that you can get from one string to another without hitting anything. Think about it. If the strings are all in a plane like this, and you're just going back and forth sideways, then if you want to get to a new string, you're going to hit whatever is in the way. The only way to avoid this is to go up in the air over the top of the string, which is exactly what escape motion allows you to do, because all these motions spend at least some time up here in the escape zone. So if you're picking continuously and you want to go from one string to another, well, logically there are only two options, right? You either go through the string or you go over the top of it. Well, of course there's a term for going through the string, sweeping, but that's intentional. When you use sweeping, you're deliberately trying to hit multiple notes with one pick stroke. When you're alternate picking, you're shooting for one note per pick stroke most of the time. So most people don't want to hit the adjacent strings. They think of that as a kind of mistake. So for alternate picking, going over the top of the string is the only option that completely avoids this unwanted string contact, and that is what escape motion does. Now, if you're new to cracking the code, this leads to a conclusion that you might find somewhat surprising. Anyone who is good at alternate picking is already doing escape motion, even if they don't know they're doing it, and even if they say they're not doing it. And that's okay, because before cracking the code started filming picking technique in slow motion, almost nobody knew this. It just wasn't a part of mainstream guitar instruction. Now, I first discovered escape motion in 1991 in college when I noticed it in my own playing. And I wrote a paper on it at the time explaining the mechanics, but I had no way of filming it because the tech didn't exist or was out of reach for regular people. But by the early 2000s, that started to change. My first interview rig used a high-speed scientific FireWire camera controlled by an app I wrote running on a Mac laptop. The mount was an assortment of intimidating rods and clamps that luckily didn't maim anyone, but came close a few times, and the results were worth it. Finally getting to see these motions up close was like detecting the Higgs boson or something. Mike Stern, upstroke escape. Steve Morse, double escape. Albert Lee, upstroke escape and double escape. All these motions were just waiting there to be seen. But the rig was large, heavy, complicated, and not really practical for everyday use by regular people who just want to learn how to play. The quantum leap for that happened when Apple released the iPhone 5S. This was the device that really democratized high frame rate video. Basically, overnight, you had NFL levels of slow motion replay on your telephone, okay?
Then select the specific section you want played back at quarter speed.
Well, by this point, we were doing Cracking the Code as a full-time business, and the utility of this as a better version of the interview rig was immediately obvious. It took us a few iterations, or well, more than a few, but we eventually landed on a really elegant way to get the magnet onto the guitar neck in just the right spot while holding the phone in the other axis. So the current magnet is very similar to those early prototypes with its dual expansion, with a few additions like the locking strap. So it's a design that has been in service for us now for almost 10 years across a wide range of interviews with amazing players on all kinds of instruments. And the footage we've been able to capture is really just something of a marvel that I never get tired of looking at. So the reason we designed the magnet was to film escape motion, right? And escape motion specifically relates to playing phrases that move from one string to another. But here's the thing. Some of the most difficult problems we see when players come to us for help don't involve going from one string to another. If you can't play faster than 130 or 150 beats per minute 16th notes, even while picking just a single note, then filming yourself isn't necessary. A number that low is already telling you everything you need to know about what to do next. It's telling you you need a new technique, right? So if your current most pressing challenge is a very low maximum picking speed or a feeling of fatigue and tension, don't buy a magnet just yet. Instead, what you should do next is test your joint motion to confirm that, in fact, you're not actually the slow player you think you are. Your maximum picking speed is probably much higher than what you're currently experiencing on the instrument. Now, these motion tests are part of our instructional sequence on the Cracking the Code platform, but here's a slightly longer presentation of one of them, which you can watch on our YouTube channel, and I'll throw the link down there in the description. Now, these tests aren't just academic. They're designed to accurately mimic real-world picking motions while being easier to execute by leveraging everyday activities you probably already know how to do. If you can reach your desired picking speed on the test, then you can also do it on the instrument with some trial and error. Now, as you perform that trial and error or experimentation, you can film yourself occasionally just to make sure the technique resembles the one you're trying to learn. This is a general assessment just to sanity check your approach so you don't waste time doing things you don't intend to. And once again, you don't really need a magnet for this kind of filming. You can get great footage with a typical phone holder style tripod mount, and we have a free explainer in the help section of our website with specific tips for doing exactly this. And again, I'll put that link down there as well. If you spend all day long on the Cracking the Code forum, nerding out on joint motions you see in slow motion video, you know who you are. I'm not going to stop you. Buy a magnet, you'll love it. If you're not a mechanics hobbyist, but your main interest is improving your playing and you're already playing fast on a simple tremolo with a feeling of ease and already able to cleanly synchronize simple repeating patterns on a single string, guess what? You are a good candidate for a magnet. And that's because the next step involves carrying your picking motion across the strings, and that's where escape motion really matters. Well, the good news is that almost every picking motion you can do has some type of escape. The hard part is knowing which one you're using and where the errors are coming from. We made the magnet first and foremost for us. It just happens that other people wanted them too, so we did the Kickstarter, and that was actually really gratifying. But I still don't want to overstate its importance for people who aren't hobbyists in understanding picking mechanics and wouldn't know what they're looking at in magnet footage anyway. And also, look, we've never sold a hardware product before, and I've watched gear reviews for years like everybody else. I know it's a kind of a racket, so I'm just really wary of being like, buy this thing, it'll fix all your problems. So watching slow motion video of your picking hand might not be right for you depending on where you're at currently, and worse, waiting for the magnet to be in stock before getting serious about your playing, it's just delaying progress that you could be making. Get your tremolo happening to a point where it feels smooth. If you can't, hit us up for lessons, but don't waste your money on gear you don't need.